We have just completed the prospect theory, loss aversion, sunk cost, decision paralysis, and endowment effect. Now, one is in theory knowing what it is. The other part is understanding whether we are prone to that. Now, I hope all of you have sent the quizzes. I think we had 100% this thing. Just working on the results. I think by tomorrow we'll be able to discuss that. And now what we plan to do is, first let's start with do you prefer fixed income securities over stocks?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So many, yeah, means some people they say. Are you tempted to get out of the markets when prices fall?
Yes.
Yes. Does your portfolio have few winners followed by a long list of losers? Yes. Do you sell winners fast and hold on to losers?
Yes.
Do you make important spending decisions based on past spending? Yes. So, what do we conclude? That we suffer from loss aversion and sunk cost. I think the majority of you suffer from that. So now we start with what do we do about it. Always assume that you are more sensitive to losing money than you actually think. How many drive a car over here? All of you are very confident that, how confident are you about your driving skills? All are confident, driving skills. So nobody has had an accident in the last 6 months. Otherwise he would have put his hand up. Now this is overconfidence level. Because whenever in anything you ask someone how confident you are as a driver, not only here but internationally also, everyone except someone who has had a bad accident in the last 6 months would always say, well, I am very confident, I am very confident. So, as far as making losses is concerned, assume that you are more sensitive to loss aversion than what you actually think. If your answer to the first question, would you prefer fixed income, then I think your loss aversion is really very high. Because you are not willing to take any risk, just want to put them into this, into fixed income securities. At least for such people, if you have told, you are not really prepared for the vagaries of the stock market. Because stock market are every day going to test your patience, your ability to take on the risks. And if you feel that only it's fixed income, then either you think ahead of what you can do with it, or at least my advice is don't get into the stock markets. Ask yourself if you will exit the stock market the first sign of trouble. You own 50,000 worth of Wipro. You bought at 25,000 rupees. And 50,000 worth of Telco, you bought at rupees 1 lakh. So in one you are making a profit, in one you are making a loss. You need 50,000 rupees. Which will you sell? Wipro. Again, if you chose Wipro, your loss aversion is very high. You require 50,000 rupees. You sold Wipro because you are getting a profit. The idea would be that you sell half of each because you have a tax deduction available for a loss you make. So, if you have chosen Wipro, because then you are prone to selling winners too fast and holding on to the losers. But if you sell half of each, then you are managing your finances in a much better way. So when you're, after having checked your appetite for loss, what you got to do is diversify. Now, diversification by a lot of people in the markets is considered diversification for diversification's sake. Now, just because you have loss aversion, but just because you want to play it safe, don't go on buying 100 or 200 stocks in your portfolio. In fact, I did a very interesting study about all the mutual fund managers. Their portfolios existed from a minimum range of 100 to a maximum range of 400 stocks. Now, if you follow a such diversification policy, then even if you have one or two even multi-baggers, it will hardly affect your portfolio. Because how much, if you have an X amount of money, if you have divided between 100, 200 or 400 stocks, how much can you buy of a one good winner? But most of these mutual fund managers, they try to do this because they believe that they are dispersing the risk. But actually, when you see a portfolio that, you can really make out it is nothing but an admittance of mediocrity. Because when you are mediocre, you don't know what to do. Because if you are in the stock market, if you are looking at investing in businesses, then your idea is to let me at least take a chance. Let me come to a conclusion. Let me show that I believe in this and then I buy a stock. So, within asset classes also, you got to be understanding that a good portfolio, like at PPFS, we don't have more than 20 stocks in a portfolio. First reason is, it's really difficult to even follow minutely 20 stocks. And if you have about 50 to 100 stocks, it is virtually impossible. Secondly, then you got to always diversify across asset classes. And why across asset classes? Because your loss aversion will be very low if you have it across asset classes. I'll explain you how. If you remember that quiz of 2000 and 1000 rupees, if you would, those people who saw the portfolio as a whole, in fact someone from the class had answered also, I had 1500 rupees that time and now I have, after even giving away 500, I'll have 1500 rupees. So now you are looking at 1500. So when you are looking at a portfolio as a whole, if you are diversified across asset classes, then a big dent in one in one asset class will not bring up your loss aversion and make you do certain mistakes. Now, when you are diversifying across asset classes, what you are doing is you are trying to take in different vehicles to take you to your different goals. How many of you have an investment plan in place? Okay, 1, 2. It's very important to have an investment plan in place, because then only you are able to know your goals. And when you know your goals, you know what vehicle to take. Now that vehicle can come in the form of fixed income, that vehicle can come in the form of gold or real estate or whatever it is, or stocks. But when you have a plan in place, then your diversification of assets will give you a lot of peace of mind. Now, I'll touch on one subject at this moment, is why stocks is the best form of asset. As I mentioned earlier, stocks represents an interest in a business, stock ownership. Now let's look at all the asset classes which are there. One is fixed income. We all know that the vagaries of inflation will just eat into your money the day you put your money. If today the banks are giving us about 8% interest, if you put your money today in the bank, then you are making a decision to degenerate your money from today. Because even if you get the interest, what does your psychological mind say? Return on my money. But you have to understand that return of your money is also a very important thing. Now when the inflation ravages come, had you made a 5-year fixed deposit of 1 crore of rupees 5 years before, 5 years before you would be able to buy a piece of real estate over here in 1 crore rupees. After 5 years, that is gone. Now why that has happened? One is asset inflation, consumer inflation. So even whatever money you started getting was depreciating. So your ability or your purchasing power was going down. So fixed income securities is something out. Especially when you are a great inflationary situation. Then you have another choice, to keep your money under the mattress. Even that's out, because that's also not doing anything for you. Thirdly, you have gold. Gold is going up, so you may be thinking, I should be buying gold. How many people feel that gold is the best form of investment? Okay, none of the ladies? None of the ladies saying gold is the best form of investments? Good. Now, gold, prices are going up. Is that your answer, that you find this not the right form of investment? Is it because the prices have already gone up? Someone had told me that gold, you don't find it's the right form of investing, is because the prices are high. Do you mean that? Now the prices are high. Okay. Now, still people are chasing gold. Every day they believe that gold. If you ask me, yeah, gold would be very good help to you if you want to run away from this country. Because you go to any other country, if you are carrying gold, anybody will buy it. So suppose if you want to do that, that would be a very good, which I doubt whether any one of us wants to do that. Secondly, the gold prices which they are going up is because of the derivative markets. Today, as I told you, every innovation in the capital markets or the financial markets are always against the user of those derivative or whatever those financial products are. And derivative is one form. These are good hedging mechanisms, but people have started using them as speculative elements. That's why when you do futures and options, then you got to understand that it's your casino mind is working, because then only you would like that. Otherwise, you would not like that. And the derivative market, the thing is a fictitious market, because you can just put 10% margin and buy something. So you can leverage yourself. And when you can leverage yourself, they have built this pack of cards, which people go on buying, the price is there. Knowing fully well that with a herd mentality, people start coming to buy together, and they will also come to sell together. That's why you have always asset bubbles and asset bursts. So, a thing like gold is also out, because it does not give you a regular return. Then real estate. Yes, all of us would require a place to stay. So all of us want real estate. But the problem with real estate is that if you have less money, you cannot buy any real estate. Nor can it be divisible. You cannot, in a real estate, be able to diversify within that sector. And you require big amounts of money. So real estate for a lot of people is out of bounds. The other asset classes would be diamonds, silver, this. Of course, the same argument for gold, and everything will go for them. One interesting thing about stocks is they represent business interest. Now, haven't you always been taught that stocks are the best hedge against inflation? We all have learned that. Still, in spite of that, whenever the inflation started going up in this last month or so, you find the stocks started going down. Now, this was a very stupid phenomena happening. And why is it happening? Because people are making decisions depending upon what is fed to them. Now, I'll explain you why inflation is really good for the stocks and why in an inflationary situation, why stocks are the best form of investment over any other asset class. You could have ups and downs in stocks. You can lose money in stocks. 80%, 90% would be because of your own behavior. 10% would be acts of God. Now, whatever I'm talking just now, if you're going to have an Indo-Pak war, then well, definitely every market will go down and things are going to be bad. There'll be a gloomy situation. Now, stocks, if you don't have any of these opportunities, stocks are the best form of investment because you require money in the bank and a demat account. Secondly, when you are buying stock, you are buying an interest into a business. Don't think you are buying a stock because the stock someone told you it will go up or go down. Stock ownership is becoming a minority shareholder in a business. All of us would love to have our businesses, but we cannot. So let us go to businesses which are run by other people. So when you are buying a stock, you are buying a business, a part of that business. Now, that business sells a service or a product at a profit. This profit, out of that, some is distributed to you as way of dividends. The rest is plowed back into land, machinery, buildings, knowledge workers, creating patents, creating brands, and the company ultimately grows. Now, when this money is plowed back, the company has started growing. When it grows, it's able to generate more money for you. And in an inflationary situation, it will always have the pricing power. Because when inflation is rising, the cost to put another plant of that size is also going up. So, less competition will be coming in for that company because it has established itself. Especially if you have chosen a company or a business which requires least amount of capital, which is run by A-grade management, which has good strong brand, strong distribution network, good patents, then I'm sure that you will always be at ease knowing fully well what you have got. And you will celebrate when you see inflation going up. Because that stock investment is only going to beat your inflation. Nothing else is going to beat your inflation. And that is the reason stock markets are the most interesting in the world, is because you are not able to understand. The fact that you are not able to understand, we'll definitely take that tomorrow. But today we'll again go that when you are diversifying across asset classes, you cannot miss on stocks as an investment. Even if you are 75 years of age, the vagaries of inflation are going to hit you. And it is at that point of time that a little stock investment will really help you a long way. Look at the forest and not the trees. Do not look at gains and losses in isolation. As I told you, have the full picture. Today, we have spreadsheets and everything. All sorts of avenues are available. Have a good investment philosophy or a strategy in place. That is a part of your planning. That what strategy do you require? Do you want to be a trader? Well, so be it. That you can be a trader and have a trading strategy in place. You can be a long-term investor and you can have a long-term strategy in place. You can have a strategy whereby you decide that I only get into businesses which I understand, which is what Warren Buffett does, that businesses which I understand. That's why something like groceries is something business you can understand, but technology is something which you cannot understand. So you can have a strategy that I'm only going to do what I understand. Secondly, another strategy could be, well, I only go with grade 1 management, irrespective of whatever I get. They say, if someone is coming out with a company, they say, which is going to take people on space tourism, well, I don't want, because I don't understand whether it will be possible or not. And in the markets, there are a lot of people, when they see the markets are good, they sell you dreams. So don't get carried away by the dreams. When you have an investment plan on paper, determine the allocation percentage of assets. And as I told you, equities should definitely form a good part of your asset allocation. And important thing, when you are doing anything, write it down. Because when you write it down, you are making a commitment to yourself. It's the most important. Anything. I maintain a ledger of everything I do today. I write it down. The mistakes I make, I write it down so that you are able to remember everything. Why you came for this behavioral finance course, you should write it down. What did I want to learn? Why this course attracted me? I have written it down. At the end of 14 days, this thing you should have, okay, this thing, have I met my objectives? Have I not met my objectives? What have I learned? What are other things I have learned which I would rather have not learned if I had not taken the course? Once you start writing down, you are in control of all your decisions. If you are buying a stock, write it down. Okay, why you are buying this stock? This is the reason, this is the reason. When things go wrong, I am sure you will not be bothered because you have written it down and your conviction is in place. Forget the past. Most often our decisions are weighed down by our past actions. Of course, it is easier said than done, that you just cannot forget the past. Now you bought 1,000 shares of Noida Toll Bridge at 35 per share. The current price is 28. Would you buy at the current price? If your answer is no, then sell your holding. See, whatever we try to do is, the endowment effect will take us. I bought 1,000 shares at 35, now 28 it has gone down. Yes, if you ask me personally, I'll tell you, well, 28, it's still a good buy because I have the rationale behind when I bought a stock of Noida, which I just discussed the rationale yesterday with 2 or 3 of our students, that my rationale was there, nothing else has changed, but Noida is going down. It's going down because there is one institution which wants to decrease its allocation on the emerging and the Indian markets. It happens to be having Noida and it happens to be selling that stock. Now, these things are beyond our control. But keeping to Noida, putting your plan on paper, putting your rationale of investment is in your hands. So, it's no rocket science that you don't understand the stock market. Now, when you don't understand the stock market, you will next day go and sell a Noida. Now, I'll give you an example. You have just bought a brand new Maruti car for 4 lakhs of rupees. It's doing exceedingly well for you. It's taking you from places to places, this, that. And it's just 6 months. A stranger on the road just stops you and tells you, hey, I'll buy this car for 2 lakhs of rupees. Would you sell your car? But well, in markets, you would make such mistakes. It's the same thing. One day, you are holding a stock, the market becomes intoxicated, the stock prices go down, and a stranger, which is the market, is willing to pay you an X price for that stock, and you get scared, your fear overtakes you, and you go and sell those stocks. The analogy is the same. So it's very important that you forget the past and start afresh. Let bygones be bygones, and you start making your decisions. Would you buy at the current price? If you are not going to buy at the current price, then go and sell your holding. If you are going to buy, what is the rationale you want to buy? Then you can go on buying more. Reframe your losses as gains. I don't need to tell you what it is. Just give you an example. Tax deduction. Segregate gains and integrate losses. Because if over a period of time, if pleasure is becoming boring and pain becomes terrifying, then you have to see that all your windfalls, of course you can never plan your windfalls, but it would be lovely if your windfalls are spread over a period of time, because then your happiness at that time goes on increases and it stays happy. However, if you are going to the dentist for a painful tooth extraction, and if you have 3 of them, do it in one shot, because take that pain altogether, so that otherwise if you take it one today, again it is terrifying. So next time when you have to go for the same thing, it'll remind you of that terror. So don't go. So the best way is try to integrate your losses, take your losses the day it comes. So many times we just hold on, waiting, that no, I don't want to sell, tomorrow I'll do something about it. It's a classic case of mental accounting which we'll take tomorrow, is that no, I will not sell, because people feel that loss comes only when you take the action to sell. But actually loss has already come, because once you bought a stock, if it's marked to market, the loss has already come with you. It's only your belief that tells you that if you sell, it comes. So never try to time your things. This is difficult. Less attention to your investments. Well, it's a fact. Because the more you see the ups and downs of your investments, you will start having more pleasure and more pain. Every day if you go on looking at the investments, why this went up, is because you don't have an investment plan in place. If you have an investment plan, if you have taken a stock with an idea that over a period of 3 years, I know it's a great business and I know that this will appreciate. Every day if you take it, then you allow Mr. Market to control you. When you have to be in control of yourself, you are allowing the market to control you. Today, technology enables you to see your investments from minute to minute. I think that is one thing which you have to avoid, because you have a BlackBerry, it comes. You can access your email from anywhere. You can also have stock alerts being sent to you on SMS messages. Only way of destroying your peace of mind and your and your investments would be every day trying to find out whether the stock has gone up or not. Does it make a difference? It doesn't make a difference, but only it clouds your thinking. Because one day if the market has gone down, and if you are studying for an exam, oh, why did this go down? It could come back tomorrow, but it has taken away that moment from you. Even I own a BlackBerry, and I have stopped all my BlackBerry. Worst part, of course, you guys must be with the BB services, BlackBerry Messenger. It's worse than SMS also. But I have stopped that, I have stopped my emails, everything, because life is too simple. With all these gadgets, with all this technology, we are trying to make it much more complicated. So, pay less attention to your investments. Don't go to the cyber cafe to even see your stocks. And if you ask me, when should we really look at our stocks? First is, you have to be a long-term investor. If you have done the right things, maybe every 6 monthly you can watch your stocks. Maybe difficult, so then do it for every month. But that also with an idea to check, have a regular check, that's all. And that time tell yourself that irrespective of what the stock market is, irrespective of what the stock price is there, I'm just going to check, because that is my money and I will not be perturbed whether they are up or down. Equanimity is more important. Yeah.
See, again, let's just confirm what would long-term investment be for you? Would it be actually looking for a price and a value? Like I said yesterday, emphasis to look at 130, 600.
Yeah.
Now, long-term need not be that it will come in 5 years and I'll sell it only in 5 years or 10 years. That 600, if it does come in 3 months, I shouldn't just sell it.
Yes, correct. Now,
so if I'm seeing my investment on a 6 months or 1 year basis, I might be missing 3 opportunities maybe of selling it at every time at 600 and buying it at.
Correct. Now, I'll tell you, just about 3 days back, I and my CEO, we were just discussing about this. We were looking at some of the trading clients of ours. and the stocks which we had bought. They all were good enough to listen to us in 2008, and they are very good clients, but they have that instinct of trading. They believe that no, trading mein thoda maja hai. I don't go to this thing. You know, there are people, there are arguments by people. See, I don't smoke, I don't drink. So, main ye to karu ke nahi? Okay. So, you know, this is how they justify themselves. Because every human being wants some sort of an adventure or an action. Now, we calculated all of them in trading more than they are winning. And it is all of them. I am telling you, there were about 40 of them which we did. All of them. Some of them have made losses, some of them have made profits. But all of them have given us more money than the profits also they have made. Leave aside the losses, to wo to gaya. The broking firm of ours has made money from every 40 people of this thing. Even those who had made profits, but I have made more profits than what they have done. Now, the question is, that time we were discussing, that now had they kept all the stocks at that point of time, till date, we calculated whatever they had bought at that time, they would have been much better off. Because the transaction costs, the government taxes and everything took away a most part of it. Because when you trade, 30% the government is becoming your partner. And you believe, I've got that. But that time you forget that 30% tax you are paying. And the power of compounding is so much, they're saying, beneficial for the holder who is in stocks, that long term always, this thing goes on increasing it.
See, again, my question is not about trading every month, but only looking at tracking your investments every month.
Yeah, in tracking what will happen?
You would just look at the price, make sure if it's near 600, then you would think of selling.
Correct. So you watch it. Now these guys were thinking the same thing. Those who had bought 160, I know about one, 165 he had bought his Emphasis. And then this thing at 300, he thought double hoga, why should I not tell? Because he was looking at a return. And you can't look at a return when you have bought a business. Because even when he sold it at 300, it was only 8 to 9 times earnings. See, that is the rationale. So what your rationale is, at that time you have to ask, not that I'm getting so much money, at what rate it is today available. Like I told you this thing. You forget the past. Today would you be buying that? If you tell no, then you sell it off. That would be the idea.
Something like microfinance. The industry is regulated by government.
See, we discussed yesterday about real estate. Now, all of you know that in real estate, cash changes hands. Whenever you want to buy a piece of flat or office or anything, there is a cash component over there. Now, in the cash component, if the company your balance sheet and tells you that this is my balance sheet, would you believe that balance sheet? So what you are getting, the only document which you get to know the health of that company is wrong. You know that, because where is the cash component going? So it is something that you have to just discard it. Microfinance is a new concept because it was very popular. They're saying it became popular through that Dr. Yunus in Bangladesh. People have started over here. Now there you really require the type of management to be absolutely grade 1. It is more, microfinance is more of a social work than a business. But people have got attracted to that because you can charge more interest rates. And under the ban of a microfinance company, nobody questions you about charging such high interest rates. Secondly, you are dealing with a very low strata of people where they really require help rather than... So I won't consider microfinance personally that as a business model. And what we have heard just now, what we have got in the papers and all, there was a big struggle to be into the microfinance business. One is because it is something new. It's become a fancy. It is very good. This fancy got really punctured because of those infighting in those what was the name? SK. Yeah, because of that, it's very good it got. Otherwise, there were a host of issues waiting to come to the market, claiming that we are doing microfinance. So it's like Something which is a fancy, will it be able to run by people properly? Similarly, in an infrastructure stock, I will not buy an infrastructure because my way of looking at a company is, would it throw money at a shareholder or would it require money from the shareholder? Infrastructure companies go on requiring money because projects get delayed and everything. So I will not touch. I like Noida. Noida is also an infrastructure company. I would like that because 13 years has passed. All the ills of an infrastructure have been behind. Now it requires no money and only left to right they have to charge the toll. Only expenditure they'll require is maintaining the roads and all, which is fine. So you got to be looking at things in a very different, new ideas would be there, but when new ideas in the market, you got to be the first one to identify a new idea, then stay invested till the other jokers identify that new idea, make it a fancy. And how do you see that is when you see IPOs coming in the market, that time you know now ye iska fancy hai. And had you been lucky enough with that sector, then it's good. But at that point of time, don't go and chase the sector. Now you might be a victim of decision paralysis and endowment effect. Now, do you have hard time choosing investment options? Do you have? No answers. Okay. Do you buy products on trial, never return? No. You delay making spending decisions. You hold on stocks you own. Do you go to a company visits and buy stocks? Then why do you go? Free drinks and free dinner. That should be the answer. And do you have a retirement? I don't think I should be asking you because you are too young for thinking of retirement. So that question is not for you. First, decision making paralysis. Deciding not to decide is also a decision. Taking a decision is moving away from your level of comfort. Morning I explained you 50% chance of going right, 50% chance of going wrong. Why not take the 50% chance of going right? And so what if you go wrong? You are going to be at the same level. But don't miss out on that 50% chance. In life, there are a lot of decisions we have to make, we don't make. So when you don't make those decisions, you don't even get a feedback on what would have happened. So your mind or your knowledge is very limited to the feedback of the decisions only which you have taken. So there is a vast opportunity over there that when you go on trying different things, you will definitely have different experiences. And that is what life is about. Consider the opportunity cost. Markets are absolutely down and stocks are absolutely cheap. You have the money, but at that time the fear is at its peak and you don't invest into markets. Markets after some time would rebound from their new lows to new highs. Now what happens if you had not bought it? The amount of regret you will feel is going to be. Now had you at that point of time taken, okay, this is my appetite for loss. That's why first and foremost of this slide, this presentation was, what is your appetite for loss? You have to, each one of you have to know your appetite for loss. Like you asked me this question, that at this stage I should be getting out. Yes, if your appetite for loss is not much, then even getting that 100% may be a good thing for you. But if you are an investor into stocks, then it is a wrong thing to you because you want to ride the stocks. So don't pay too much attention to what you have now than what you might have down the road when contemplating financial decisions. So always you got to imagine a brighter future for you. I think it's more of positive thinking. That what if I buy this, then tomorrow I'll be. Because if you are going to be dreaming this thing, then only your dreams will come true. If you are going to be thinking big, you'll be able to do. If you are going to be thinking small, you'll be always remaining small because our minds are very powerful. It's what your thought and your actions which make you. If you think big, you will act big. Things will become big. I'm not telling that all of a sudden tomorrow just think that no, I'm going to be this. But what I'm talking about is positive thinking. Put yourself on autopilot if you are not able to do anything. If there is a problem that you can't take certain decisions, put yourself. If you have to pay your mortgages, then ask your banker that every month he has to pay your mortgages. Otherwise what happens is, that decision again comes to you. And at that point of time, you have a need to spend something else, and then you may delay the mortgage thinking that anyway I'll pay the interest on the mortgage. So, if you are not able to be in control of yourself, put things on autopilot, it will make a lot of sense for you. Similarly, if you are not able to invest in the stock markets, have a systematic investment plan in place. You inform your stockbroker, whatever that anyway, or make a commitment on paper. Every month 5,000, 10,000 I'm going to put in the stock markets, or put into certain mutual funds which have an SIP. So what will happen is, this thing help you not to take decisions. Of course, it's not the right way of doing it, but initially, if you are too much under decision paralysis, this is one way you can think of going forward. Change your frame of reference. One of the quizzes which we did was about that holiday spot. That if your frame of reference, what would you choose, what would you choose? You would be choosing something differently, and what would you reject, what would you cancel? Your mind would be working differently. You hold shares of Tisco, your friend recommends you sell Tisco and buy SAIL. How do you decide that? How would you decide that? Any answer? Both are in the steel sector. How would you decide? Okay. Any other questions? We are talking about a decision. Now, when you have to change your frame of reference, because you are holding Tisco, you are prone to be in a status quo bias and an endowment bias, because you are holding Tisco. So when your friend tells you to sell Tisco, what you will feel, and if you are not having SAIL, the endowment bias will make Tisco very dear to you, and you will feel that the market is not quoting the right price for Tisco. Now SAIL is something which you don't know, but your friend recommends. You play the rejection game. Imagine that you want to invest in the steel industry. Imagine that there are two companies, Tisco and SAIL. Where will you invest? If it is Tisco, don't sell. Now that's why you are going to buy Tisco or why SAIL will come. But when you have to make a decision, how do you get rid of the bias? First is, at every point of time, you have to ask a question, am I be subjected to a bias? And all of us, even I, if I am teaching you today, I am also subjected to a lot of bias. So, at every time, if you have to rerun it, come back to the neutral place or the neutral stage and then start taking a decision. And I am sure that way you will be able to take much more better decisions. I am not saying it would be the right decisions, but taking decisions with the right frame of mind is important. Right and wrong would depend upon a host of other factors. So don't play the game of choosing. So many times people are not able to sell stocks for a host of reasons. They get married to the stocks. As I told you that it's only a vehicle to allow you to reach your goal. You cannot be going in a taxi from here to there. It's a vehicle which has taken you and then you think, no, I should buy the taxi. Similarly, you have to let go of certain stocks after they have reached their purpose in your goal. There is no free lunch, we all know. So whenever you get anything on trial, there is definitely a catch. It's the endowment catch. Similarly, company visits, it's endowment. Sales promotion parties, it's enjoyment. Analysts meet, the same thing. Next time whenever you get an invitation, don't feel happy about it. Try to find the catch. I am not telling you don't go for such things, but you understand that you go with again a neutral state, that I am just going over there, let me see what it is. Like, I go to company visits, this, that and all, because I have a good time over there. Because they treat you well. I go it for that purpose. I am very clear I am going there. I am not going there to decide on anything. Analysts meet, why should I go to the bar and drink alone? If they are going to serve me drinks, I go there. Be honest to yourself, this is why I am going over there. Normally I find 5 stars very expensive, so they have it in 5 stars. So how many, I ask that question, how many people are invited today, for the dinner at this 5 star? If I am invited, there are so many people living in Bombay, they are not invited, so I am fortunate enough. That's how I go there. This is being true to yourself. Understand why you are going there. Lastly is Dale Carnegie's principles on worry. Whenever you have to take a decision, ask, what is the worst that can happen to you? Analyze all the facts of the situation. It may not be really as bad as you may think. And irrespective of that is, think that be prepared for the worst. All your decisions become a breeze. Because why? You have decided that you are prepared for the worst. The problem with us is we are only fearing what will happen and thinking. What is worry? Worry in our mind, which does not allow us to decide, is just a worm in our thought process. It is actually something which we have imagined. Okay, this, if I do this, this will happen. And your rational mind tries to justify that you are doing everything logically and trying to come to a conclusion. And you start worrying because that thought ultimately in your mind starts decaying and taking away your sleep. So, when you analyze, even I would recommend this Dale Carnegie, How to Stop Worrying, this thing. It's a fantastic book, and this thing, all of you must go through that, because that is also all about decision making and helping you to take life the way it comes, rather than thinking it as a burden. And ultimately, once you do this process, then you go on, take the decision, and assure you cannot be wrong. Thank you. Now I'll take any questions which you have, because here you're going to have a lot of questions.
So what is the take of technical analysis? Does it really help?
What is technical analysis? Actually, in one way, it's study of human behavior. Because when you see a chart going up, going down and all, a lot of people coming in and all. But coming into any decision from a technical analysis about how a stock would go, then my 30 years of experience in the market has not given me a positive feedback.
So it doesn't really help?
Not at all. How can life be so simple, I'm telling you this thing. On the contrary, it will help this way. When nobody is buying, others are greedy, you be fearful. When others are fearful, be greedy. All these things, if you put yourself, it's really going to help you.
So sir, suppose we have recognized the stock.
Yes.
We want to enter. But at what level to enter? How can we determine that? Suppose market was this.
Yeah.
Okay, it is at 27, 20 or 20.
Yeah.
So at what level to enter? Depending on the valuation or?
Even I don't know what is the lowest level or what is the highest level. You have to enter that, is this business available to me at a right price? Because you will never be able to get in at the lowest price, nor will you be able to get out at the highest price. It depends upon you. Now today, I bought Noida at 35, I found it good. That doesn't mean that I have gone wrong because it is 28. Don't allow the market to determine whether you are right or wrong. Yes, temporary market has given me an opportunity to buy that stock more. Now, it may so happen also that I have gone wrong in certain things. Like, we like this company, Zicom Electronics. We liked it very much. And we thought everywhere, they are in that security systems. It was a great business, everything. But the management turned out to be wrong. They did certain things. And the stock, I had bought it at 130, I sold it at 80 rupees. Just now it's around 60 rupees. Now, you could make certain, because there are no right answers. You know, like, I can speak from my experience is that I know that if I bought a business, irrespective of what the market is, I like this business at this discount. Otherwise, I don't want this business.
There are certain cases when there are no comparable companies, like in this particular case, and they bought it at a PE of around say 10-12. How can we determine whether it is overvalued or undervalued?
If you have gone through the business, if you believe it is good, if you have bought it at 10 to 12 times PE, when the market average is about 24, 25, whatever that is, but if you know it is, then hold on to your conviction. Hold on to your conviction. VST Industries is the best company in the full market because it makes cigarettes, Charminar cigarettes and all. Now, today the stock is being beaten down. Why? Because promotions of cigarettes are not allowed by the government. You can't advertise or anything. Now, is it a good thing for an first user company in the market, or is it a bad thing? Its brands are already established in the market. On the contrary, it becomes difficult for the competition to come into that. It's got a ROI of over 24 to 25% consistently over the last 20 years. It's one of the greatest businesses. The stock market may not like it or not, but I know this thing. For me, when I bought the stock at about 250, when in this meltdown, for me it's at 8 to 9% tax-free dividend yield. Now why should I be bothered about that? But I had to hold on to that stock for a long period of time. It won't move even with the market. Even it's moving slowly, but I know that I am holding a great business.